Welcome back. One of the Smith County's earliest settlements, Garden Valley, sits between Lindale and Van and was once home to more than people.
KLTV's Emma Burns takes you to today's historical marker designation, honoring the history of that village.
A crowd gathered along FM 16 to remember a community many only know by name. Garden Valley, once a bustling settlement in the mid-1800s, is now the latest site in Smith County to receive an official Texas historical marker.
You know, if we don't put these markers up commemorating tiny communities like this who used to be thriving in the 19th century, then they'll be forgotten about forever. They'll just be a footnote in history, and these markers are a real tangible way for people to see and appreciate and feel the history of these places.
According to Smith County Historical Commission Chairman Connor Hartrich, Garden Valley was home to more than 300 people at its peak, complete with a post office, schools, churches. But as nearby towns grew, the village slowly turned into a memory. Buddy Kindle grew up in the town, and after years of moving around, he settled with his roots. Kindle tells us his family has lived there for many years, with his grandfather moving to Garden Valley in the early 1900s.
I think it's fantastic. It's about time. We need to get more information about it, though. It was quite a vibrant community when it started.
The historical marker was initially approved in 2019, but a recent survey discovered it was never installed. Now, the marker stands at what records show is the birthplace of the town.
It's important to me because, like I said, how will we know it's us without our past?
Emma Burns, KLTV 7 News.
You can see that historical marker at the intersection of FM 1251 and FM 16 in Garden Valley.
I love reading those.